body image is just this idea of what your body looks like or feels like. But body experience is what it's like to be in your body every day. And that changes every day because your experience of being in your body is different.
You've arrived at the Mental Health Spotlight podcast with therapist Kais. I want to honor your time. I can tell you're very busy because I think you're probably doing amazing things that I'm going to learn about. But I welcome you, Jillian Lampert. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Is looking at some of the details of your history, and there's so many letters behind your name that I'm not going to attempt to describe who you are, what you do. I'm just going to let you go ahead and tell me a little bit about who the heck Jillian Lampert is.
Absolutely. There are a lot of letters. My joke is that I get them all on the internet. Not true. So I am the Vice President of Strategy and Public Affairs for the Emily program, which is an eating disorder treatment program with lots of locations across the country. I'm a dietitian clinically. So I am, in addition to a lot of administrative executive work that I do, I have seen clients with eating disorders for a long time as a dietitian.
I was checking that and seeing that was your actual history is in there, which will inform a lot of our conversation, I would think, as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So currently then you mentioned you're with Emily program, but also you have an ED coalition that you as well do. Can you tell me a little bit how those roles might be different?
Absolutely. So I'm on the board of the Eating Disorders Coalition, which is the national advocacy group for eating disorders in the U.S. We are on Capitol Hill and really advocating for better access to care and generally better recognition of eating disorders as a public health problem at the congressional level. So I do that as a volunteer board member. And then another hat that I wear is I'm president of the REDC, which is the consortium that represents eating disorder care, sort of the treatment program organization, if you will. And we really focus on standards and ethics and collaboration and really seeking to raise the bar across the treatment industry, as well as increase access to care because we know people need care.
And this is what I'm so looking forward to in this conversation is being more educated. This is what I do for a living. I'm a specialist as well. I didn't know about Red Sea, and I should.
Excellent.
And working on the client side as a clinician, you hear so much about the different experiences they have in care. I'm assuming a lot of that deals with higher level of care. Is that fair to say in residential settings?
It's any higher level of care from intensive outpatient to partial hospital program, residential, inpatient. So anything more than your one-on-one outpatient experience.
Okay. And where it gets more and more complicated.
Right.
And this organization is trying to make it better, it sounds like.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's always a challenge. So you are super busy. Where are you located right now? Where's your home place?
I live in Minnesota. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is where I spend most of my life between Minnesota and Vermont, which I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But I'm either in Minnesota or I'm on a plane going somewhere else to speak or visit one of our sites.
So it's so funny because somebody else, I had just interviewed an author, was from Minnesota. And she said to me, I'm going on vacation next week to Upper Minnesota. And I stopped and I went, who goes on vacation in Upper Minnesota? Don't you go south? So confused.
No, everyone goes up north. That's the thing because it's where a lot of the lakes and people have cabins and all of that. So, yep, that's very common to go up north for vacation.
So it's probably gorgeous. The farther north, right? It's probably beautiful.
It is. It's very pretty. Lots of trees, lots of water, very scenic. Lots of mosquitoes. Less good part about it.
It's probably humid like it is here in Cleveland. We get the humidity and the lovely weather too.
Absolutely.
We get a combination. Not to disparage Minnesota. I just think it's colder than Cleveland probably. So that's hard for me to understand.
It is. Spending a fair amount of time in Cleveland as I do, since we have an Emily program there, it is definitely colder in Minnesota. And the weather tends to be a little bit different. So when we talk to our friends in Cleveland, we generally say, like, we can predict the weather because we know what they're going to get tomorrow. It's very fancy.
Love that. You are my helper. You can tell me what day I'm going to the beach, right?
Exactly.
I love it. And we do have a beautiful Emily program presence here. We work with them quite a lot. So when I saw your name come across and I saw Emily program, I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to her. She's with the Emily program.
Awesome.
They've helped a lot of my clients and a lot of the Whole Institute's clients find recovery. So I think we're going to talk about how that might even happen along this way.
Great.
I have to go a little to you first just because I don't know you. Why eating disorders? When did your path from nutrition go there and then to where you hold this role as an advocate for eating disorder care?
Yeah, that was all sort of unintentional and a glorious, wonderful place I find myself. So I was supposed to go to medical school. That was my goal as a little kid. I was going to go to medical school and be a pediatrician maybe, or We had some other choices, but really I was going to go to med school. And when I was a sophomore in college, I took a course that had a really strong nutrition component in it. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I want to go into nutrition instead of into medicine, which of course is related. Nutrition is very related to healthcare. So I called my parents and said, hey, guess what? I'm not going to go to medical school, which was a little unfortunate for everyone involved, I think, in that conversation. And
And
my
good for us.
Yeah, I remember my parents saying, well, what's nutrition?" So I tried to explain all the things I could do in nutrition, which I was just starting to learn about. And so I went to graduate school in nutrition and got a master's, and then did my dietetic internship, which all dietitians need to do in order to become a registered dietitian. And the program that I did my internship at, the University of Minnesota Hospital and Clinic at the time is what it was called, had an eating disorder program. And it was one of the few eating disorder programs in the country. This is in the early 90s. There were very few eating disorder programs, right? And so I trained in this eating disorder program, and all of the other interns I was in my internship class with were afraid of the unit. They were really sort of afraid of the mental health unit. They didn't want to go up there. And I thought, well, I think it'll be okay, maybe, who knows? And I walked up, I very clearly remember the first day I walked onto the eating disorder unit, and I thought, well, these are my people. I had an eating disorder in high school and college, and I didn't even know that there was really much of a career to be had in eating disorders. My treatment access was lousy. I had some really, really helpful clinicians trying to do the best they could with what was available at the time. But really, it wasn't, it was certainly wasn't what it is now, which I'm very glad to have been a tiny part of that. But I realized in my internship, like, oh, I could do this. This is a whole career. And I have been in the field of eating disorders ever since. My first job as a dietitian, about 6 months after that day on the unit, my boss at the time, first day of work, new boss, she says, "What do you know about eating disorders?" And I thought, is this a trick question? Because at that time, it was back in the day when for some reason we didn't really talk about having a personal experience, right? And so I thought, okay, I don't think I should say that, but I could say, well, I just did my internship in this program and I did a bunch of staff relief and did a bunch of training and feel like I knew a little bit. And she said, great, you are the most trained person in this entire place. Go, which is scary. I'm 25 years old at this point, right?
Right?
Go upstairs and talk to these three other people who are really interested in starting an eating disorder program and start a program. And so we did in this small community hospital in central Vermont, where I had moved back to Vermont, where I went to graduate school the first time. And we started an eating disorder program. And it was amazing. It was glorious. We made mistakes. We helped people. We visited a couple other programs. There were very few at the time in the country to learn what other people were doing. And we started a program. And so there I was. That was my start in helping run eating disorder programs, was being in the right place at the right time.
Falling into it. So you are a pioneer. You have seen so much transition and things happen in this area.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm relatively new compared to your experience. But our owner's been in it a long time, and the dynamics of change are pretty profound in what we're doing now versus when you were in the 90s.
They are. They absolutely are.
Wow.
I've talked to Anne about that. Like, there's just so many differences between what we did in the wild, wild west of just sort of invent it all yourself to now where we actually have
Yes.
some, guidelines and best practices, which is great.
Yes. Well, and I thank you for being one of the people that was bold enough to be a pioneer and try something that people didn't talk about. And there was the stigma. It was a very different world. So
It was.
thank you for sticking it out with us
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
and being here. Um, there's a phrase that came with your introduction to me, which was cookie guilt. And I think we're going to talk a little bit, but I guess just starting with what do you see out there in the world right now, trends, cookie guilt that is impacting, I guess, our overall view of eating. And I look at disordered eating as a global thing, not just someone with anorexia or bulimia or ARFID. I believe we have a lot of disordered eating. What is cookie guilt doing to us all?
Well, I think it's just another catchphrase of what we should feel bad about eating. I think most of the trends make us feel bad about eating something, or that it somehow that's not the right choice, where maybe we're not okay if we're making that choice. So it leads to this guilt and shame associated with eating certain things. And the cookie didn't mean to do anything. It's just a cookie. It's just some ingredients mixed together and baked, and it just, didn't really sit in the cabinet all day long and wait for you to come home so it could jump off the shelf at you. It's just some food component.
There.
It's just there. It's just meant to be
Just
there.
there.
And
It's
so
just
whether
fabulous in there.
just fabulous in there. So whether it's cookies or, the other trends we see so frequently, I mean, there are a million, right? The watermelon trend I was just reading about earlier today. Turns out eating just watermelon might not be that good for you. Who knew? Whether it's gluten,
Just watermelon
just watermelon. I mean, I love a good watermelon, but like just
with
watermelon apparently was some trend that
not so good.
fortunately didn't last very long. Uh,
Thank you, science, for figuring that out for us or
I
common.
know. It's really great that we know that. So I think we see the trends change, in disordered eating. To your point, it's so common and so prevalent, and it just keeps changing faces, whether it's everyone's gluten free or everyone's keto or everyone's counting macros or everyone's got high protein or everyone's on the newest probiotic or feeling guilty about cookies. It's just the same fad packaged with a difference.
Noise. And the noise, right? Whatever you've referred to, all of it together equals food noise. So our brains are full of noise about what we should or shouldn't eat. I think of the egg. I mean, I've been around a while too, and the egg has gotten a different persona every 5 years to 10, where it has a different rule to follow.
It definitely has. I mean, the egg didn't
So
need to make us feel bad, and it doesn't really care that we feel good. It's just an egg.
just an egg. There doesn't have to be so many rules about the egg. It's funny, I was just meeting with, someone new here, and we're training her in the eating disorder side. She's a great clinician, but she had showed me something she was using about 50 healthy meals for for a client. I said, "Oh, well, what's healthy?"
Right.
I said, "I hope there's a donut and Kit Kat day." And she goes, and she was just thrown. She goes, "Oh, these are nuances I don't get." And I go, "Right, because you're still in a culture that doesn't necessarily respond to that yet." So even those of us who want to help don't always know.
Right. Yeah. Well, because we all swim in this water too, right? The diet
Yeah.
culture messages are so strong that it's normal now, unfortunately normal, to sort of
Yeah.
feel like you need to worry about what you're eating and that there should be a lot of rules that you should follow.
And I gotta go right there because I wanna learn from you. So here's where I'm going. How do we what have you found works to help someone, particularly someone with an eating disorder, when that food noise is in that ocean around them and you're teaching a different language inside of our worlds? How do we do that? What have you found helps? Because that's a tough one.
Yeah. I think recognizing that a lot of the food rules and the food noise that gets generated by those rules stems from a message of I can't have that. And so we always talk to people about like what are the things you believe you can't have? If you are, allergic to almonds, you probably shouldn't have almonds, right? You can't have those. But if you are feeling like you can't have something because it's an external rule that you read somewhere, or you heard somewhere, or you saw somewhere that is supposed to apply to everybody, that's the first warning sign that like, hey, maybe that's not meant for me. Maybe it's not meant for everybody. And so I think it's when I was just talking to my 21-year-old who is on this fantastic snorkeling and scuba research trip for school. I love this kid's life. But I was thinking about snorkeling and when you're in the water with, if we imagine the water is all this food noise, all this stuff all around, what do you do when you're snorkeling to really enjoy what you're experiencing and maybe to calm your anxiety? I don't know if you're like me, but when I first get the chance to snorkel, I'm a little anxious and you got to breathe through a tube and there's all these rules about how to
Right, right.
survive. So
Square
once you,
breathing.
yeah, yeah. So once you get that, what are you doing? You're listening to yourself. You're breathing, you're centering, you're really focusing on what your experience is, not what is all coming at you. And that allows you to see a world in the way you want to see it instead of just being bombarded by all of these messages. And if I can ride that analogy a little bit, sure, the waves might come, but you're just sort of riding them. You're just in that world, but you're focused on what you need. And so I think that's the core of eating disorder treatment or helping somebody with disordered eating is what do you really need? And what we each need probably doesn't come from a set of rules or a diet or a, web page or a Instagram feed that wants to tell us exactly how to do it. It comes from inside.
So thus the mindfulness that we learn in DBT and stuff is that once we know ourselves, we know what we need.
Right.
And when people come to Emily program and other organizations, unfortunately, there's so much noise and chaos that they may not even know yet what they need. They might need help to get there
Right.
initially.
Yeah.
Uh, and 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 so The mindfulness and being able to be aware. There's an at risk though with that, right? Because some people can do that intuitively. Other people, like I mentioned, need to be walked. Who are at risk people like that you think are more prone to these messages? Where do we need to start, I guess, and who's the most vulnerable?
Well, I think the most vulnerable are really when you look at the literature, it would tell us that the most vulnerable are people who have anxiety, have depression, are probably the most vulnerable. So if anybody is seeing anybody who has either anxiety or depression, which are very common, or anybody seeing somebody for anxiety and depression, those are the first folks to be thinking about. Oh, I should be talking about eating. Like, how's your relationship with food going? Which is a question that if you have a positive, fine, peaceful relationship with food, you might even be like, it's fine. You might be puzzled by that question. But if you have a disruption in your relationship with food, you're going to have a different response, right? Like, it's fine. Well, even the fine will have a different tone, right? and that gives you some evidence of sort of how is that person's relationship with food. So people who have anxiety and depression, we know genetically are predisposed at higher rates to have an eating disorder than somebody who doesn't have anxiety or depression. So I think it's really the how do you think about the person in front of you, whether it's your friend or a client or a coworker. uh, what else might they be dealing with? That gives you a little bit of clue. And then where are they getting a lot of their information? So when we talk to folks who come in and are getting a lot of their health information from influencers, from people who are, maybe well-meaning and relatively uneducated or untrained in the subjects that they're giving advice around or really giving information out about, that we can be really at high risk of falling into believing something that's just really not true, or certainly not true for us, right?
Yes.
That's really the where do people get their information, and what are they believing? What are they basing these beliefs on? And is that accurate? Because if it's not accurate, that's a great place to start to talk about, well, let's see what might be accurate and see if we can shift some of that perspective.
Yes, I love that. And there's two sets of rules, right? There's the rules that we have to live by in a disordered world
Hmm.
to get better. And then there's the rules that maybe some people can follow if there's no disordered eating or disordered body image. That maybe that's out there. Um, and I also think, to your wonderful point, that the information we're given might be true to some extent for some people. But you said so beautifully that may not be what I need, because that's not the body I'm living in or the situation I'm living in.
Right.
So I shouldn't be intermittent fasting if I have an eating disorder, even though science tells me it might be okay in some settings.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it
I don't know
really
that most people can do that.
I think it's really the like, what do I want and what do I need? And learning to listen to that. Like, really, it's sort of back to that snorkeling thing, like learning to take the breaths and to settle your racing heart rate or settle your racing mind to say, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? And for some people, you're right. There's still a lot of food noise coming in, and it's really hard for them to know what they want. And it's really hard for them to know what it feels like to be hungry. And it can be really hard to know what it feels like to be satisfied. And once we can help people to understand how much information they can get internally and how they can sort of turn that internal volume up, helps to turn the external volume down a little bit. And some people need a lot of structure. That's okay. Some people need a lot of structure around their eating and their relationship with food, and some people don't need as much structure. And that can change over time. Sometimes people need structure to get to the point where they can be more mindful and less structured. You just need that as a map, just like we all need a map when we're going somewhere new. It's just a tool to get us more familiar with the place that we are going to spend time.
Yes. And that is what I would argue, and is that what higher level of care does, doesn't it? It helps create a diagram or a rubric that you can then follow when you're strong enough to follow it on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, and gives you a lot of opportunity to practice, right? How else do we learn other than practice? How do we learn anything other than practice? And when you practice something and you have the opportunity to practice it a lot and to practice it with support, those are the keys to getting better at something. And higher level of care gives you an atmosphere to practice a lot and to practice with a lot of support, and to know that there'll be people who not only understand how hard it is, the thing you're trying to do is so difficult, but also can help you to let go that one that didn't go so well and try the next one and be ready to try again.
It's like learning anything, and you were mentioning snorkeling. If I'm gonna scuba dive, they're not gonna give me a tank and throw me in the water.
Right.
I'm
Right.
gonna get a lot of hours in
That's
before
right.
I go down.
That's right. You're going to get lessons. You're going to get sort of the understanding. You're going to understand why and how and what to do if it is. It's really
Yeah,
a great way to practice and to have small wins along the way, right? Because once you can do
yeah.
something, then we all, once we think we can do something, we can do something else and it feels good.
Yes.
So that's really the repetition is so difficult and so important.
Yes, and, the whole it's not linear, meaning that it may not every scuba dive, every snorkel may not be as good as the last one or something might happen,
Right.
but you're still learning.
You're
You're
still
still
learning.
learning.
Yep. And there'll be another opportunity. That's when I say that to a lot of my clients over the years that if you're in eating disorder treatment, let's say you're in 24-hour eating disorder treatment and you have every single one of your meals in a facility with people that are going to be there to support you, well, you have at least 21 times every week that you're going to be able to
Do it right.
practice. So plus snacks. So really you got like 42 times. So you
Right.
can have a number of those go poorly and you're going to have another opportunity to try again. So it also helps people to really practice letting go and really using those DBT skills of sort of how do I let go? How do I focus on the present? How do I use my skills to manage the distress I feel now so that I can get to the next place?
So that's at every meal is a new opportunity, and you like you said, there's 40 some.
Right,
We can keep trying.
right.
It's not all gonna be great. Is there anything new through Emily program or maybe some things you've learned through your other, organizations you're involved with that is happening right now that's really helping with some of the food noise or that's helping with the nutritional approach? And that's kind of a loaded question, but
Yeah.
is there anything innovative out there?
I think some of the most innovative developments in the last maybe 10 years have really come from the genetic research and the neurobiological research that show us that some of our brains are just uh, more perceptive around reward, around stimulation. And so for some people, I call them sort of these high def living folks that just they're high noticers. They just notice everything. They notice the light, they notice the wind, they notice touch, they notice smells, they notice feelings, they notice their feelings and other people's feelings. And the world is full of lots of information, which can feel a little overwhelming. And when that kind of brain gets a hold of all kinds of food rules and messages about what it is to be eating well or to be doing the right thing or to be looking the right way, that kind of brain can get really taken advantage of by all of those messages. And so we see that kind of brain get really kind of overwhelmed by diet rules and end up in eating disorder treatment with eating disorders with enormous numbers of rules about what they need to do. We also see other brains that are and this is overgeneralization, of course, but for simplification's sake, like really interested in new, that impulsivity and taking risks is really interesting to those
Yeah.
brains, and
Yeah.
those are a great set of traits to have too, because if nobody took risks and started things, we wouldn't have any new businesses, we wouldn't have any new ideas, right? We need those brains, and we need people to be able to take risks. And those brains get a little taken advantage of by the sort of new trendy risk taking of like this diet or cutting out this food or looking this way or doing this extreme thing. And so we see that in eating disorder treatment. I think we've seen that as clinicians, we've probably kind of known those are the kinds of temperaments that show up in our offices for eating disorder treatment.
Yes.
But the neurobiological research over the last 10 years shows us that's actually the reason those people are sitting in our offices is largely because that's how their brains are working. And so when they're not well fed, when they don't have adequate nutrition, their brains are even more so that way. They're even more so struggling to make sense of
Mm.
all of this noise. And so we have to adequately nourish people to get them sort of back to a baseline where their brain can say, okay, lots of information, or I kind of like taking risks, but doing it in a way that's well nourished and more balanced than the more extremes of a undernourished brain that's not able to make the best decisions. And so it's really about bringing somebody's neurobiological sort of basis back to their baseline and what they need to manage the experience of their being in daily life. They may would be a little anxious and a little impulsive, and those are okay. Those are okay traits. They don't need any.
Yes. Right. Oh, I love that you said that because it really validates that we all have these unique set of traits that can be so wonderful, but they can also get us in trouble. And you so well said that then when the brain is starved or hungry, it doesn't respond with the correct use of those traits. The busy brain, right? I find that that is such a common thread. It's the beautiful, complicated, busy, capable brain that gets stuck. It sees this stuff and it just clinches on because they're so able to hold on so tight and then it puts them at risk when they are in those situations.
Yeah.
So the neurobiology, you've probably seen it grow where we're learning about the brain, we're learning about neuroplasticity, which thank God is there because we can train these brains
Right.
to not do this, right?
Right.
Ah, I promise you, people say, "Can my brain ever get better?" I'm like, "Yes, it has to. It only knows how to change," right?
That's right. That's
Um,
right. And it
so
wants to feel good. It wants to change so that it feels good. It wants to find a place that feels rewarding, feels calm, feels good, and we can work with that.
yeah, well, I love that. From a nutrition standpoint and understanding what we do about refeeding the body and nutritional rehabilitation, has anything changed in how we do that that is more effective over the years that you've seen? You were there in the primitive times of meal planning. Is there anything we do better or that we can hope to do better?
I think there are a lot of things that we do better. I think we're not as we're a little bit more assertive with really getting people back to being well nourished. I think we used to go low and slow was our mantra for a long time. That we really, if somebody was really undernourished and underweight for their body, that we would go really slowly and nourish them really slowly. And there's some good things about that. It gives people a little bit time to adjust. It gives them a little bit of time to adapt. And we also know now that it gives the eating disorder more time to cause more problems and have more bone loss and more white matter loss and more entrenched habit formation. So we do want to go a little quicker. And we want to do that so that we're really able to really blunt some of those impacts that we know are really difficult to manage once they happen. So I think we refeed a little more quickly. And I think we also don't say as much, like, "Just eat this and you'll feel better," or "Let's get your nutrition restored and you'll feel better." The truth is people don't feel better for a little ways down the road, right? They don't feel better right away. Their brain sort of has to catch up with the biological improvements in their heart rate or in their, hydration or what have you, but their brain really has to catch up, and so we really need to sit with people and journey with them as they go through the really uncomfortable parts of eating disorder treatment. And really some of the most uncomfortable parts are when people are in early stages of recovery having to practice over and over and over again in their home environment, whether they're at school or at work or at home, wherever they are. That's tough. It's a new skill that they have. And just like other new skills, it's a little wobbly, it takes some practice, it feels really uncomfortable. And so we need to have a lot of support and expect that it takes a while. I was talking to a colleague the other day and she was saying how she's hearing from clients like, I just want to do the least intensive, quickest way to treatment. And she said, nothing is quick. There's nothing really less about eating disorder treatment. It just takes time. And so I think we're also better at saying it's going to take time because we're rewiring your brain. It's going to take time. And
Oh,
we really need to give you that time. And then the third thing I think is that we are realizing that some people need more structure longer and some people can let go of that structure sooner. That if you have a brain that's really enticed by food messages and by aromas and by texture, well, you might need some structure a little longer than if you're somebody who's not as entranced by that. And it's not good or bad, it's not your fault. It's just sort of how your brain reacts to the environment. So knowing that is really like having the secret decoder pen that we used to have when we were kids to read your own information. We need to help you know how to read your own stuff because that's what really matters.
and there's your theme again, which is so wonderfully threaded through this is you have to know you, not what you say or you say or you said, and maybe even potentially what your treatment team is saying. You have to know you. Occasionally, a client says something, and I go, "Yeah, you know you better. Let's
Right,
figure out how to do it that way.
right. Yep,
Let's do that."
yep, yep.
So so the brain science has gotten better. It's not just a body story, it's not a behavior story. It is a we're gonna go in there and help your brain relearn all this, and that's gonna take time along with the body improving its physiology. Yeah. It's and that's validating, isn't it? It's validated. That's why it's so hard.
It is. It's hard, it takes time. I think the other innovation that I've seen that continues to evolve is the use of movement. We, at the Emily program, we use a lot of yoga. I'm a firm believer in yoga. There's a great literature on the anxiety reducing benefits of yoga just generally. And
Yes.
in eating disorder treatment, there's also a great little growing body of literature that shows it really helps to decrease anxiety in very specific ways. That we use yoga before a meal to decrease that
Yeah.
kind of anticipatory anxiety of before a meal. But if you use the yoga after a meal, you can use that to decrease the anxiety post meal of like, oh, I just ate. How do I feel about it? That yoga in its anxiety reduction benefit is fantastic. And it helps people to reconnect to their bodies, hopefully in a safe way. And it gives us I think, a great corollary when you're in a yoga class. It doesn't really matter how anybody else is doing the pose, right? It just matters what you're doing on your mat. So again, that theme of what do you need? If you can stay on your mat in yoga, you're going to get much more benefit out of it than if your mind is flitting around to everybody else's mat. And we use the same thing nutritionally to say, stay on your plate. Doesn't matter what is on anybody else's plate. It only matters what's on your plate, just like it only matters what's on your mat. So I love how the yoga interventions have really also shown up in our nutrition interventions in a really similar way.
And that's new, right? I'm assuming in the 90s you were not doing yoga as
No,
part of your treatment planning.
no, no. We did do mindful walks though. I think we were way ahead of our times. We thought, well,
Good for you.
what if we moved a little bit, but in a safe way? Turns out we were onto something. Who knew?
You were. Well, we go thousands of years back and suddenly we have what we need from
Ex-
the from the old teaching. Gee,
exactly.
yoga. What an idea.
What an idea.
Um, and I'll piggyback on that. Yoga has some wonderful movements for GI
Yes,
distress soothing. And we know with eating disorders, there's all the GI distress. So it has that also supplemental benefit.
exactly.
It's just a no brainer. And some people, to your point too, some people love it, some people don't, but it's a tool.
Yep.
And it's one that you've learned can be really helpful.
Yep.
And I love that. Um, Stay on your plate, stay in the mirror, stay in the mirror. Where does body image, I know I didn't put that in here, but just really briefly, how does Emily program or what you've seen address how the body image changes through this whole story? It's not just about the food and what I should or shouldn't eat, right?
Yeah.
It's about how my body responds or my thoughts on my body.
Absolutely. And I think it really body image work is tough work, as it usually comes a little later in the treatment process because your body is changing. Whatever your eating disorder is, your body's going to change as you go through treatment, even if it's mostly changing on the inside, because it's getting nourished, it's getting renourished, no matter what kind of eating disorder you have, whether you're overeating or undereating or both or all of the above, your body's not getting the nutrition in the way that it needs. And so it will change and grow and develop and restore itself to nutritional health. And so that takes some time for your body to experience that change. And we know that the body can feel like it's changing in all kinds of ways throughout treatment, which can be almost always perceived very awkward and very difficult feedback.
Hard,
Really hard,
change.
really hard. So helping people to sit with the feeling hard, that we're not expecting people to be like, I love my body right away. We're helping people to experience their experience in their body. And so whether it's, body image for me feels like not a deep enough term. It's, body image is just this idea of what your body looks like or feels like. But body experience is what it's like to be in your body every day. And that changes every day because your experience of being in your body is different. So really those body image interventions where we have people to really connect to their body, really try to see some of the misperceptions to see how they could care for their body and be grateful for it even if they don't like it. That you can be grateful for something you don't really like or you don't feel as connected to and that can all take excuse me, that can all take time. It takes time, it takes process, and it takes connection. And again, back to yoga, it's a great way to connect in gentle, small ways to have your experience because it's the body you're going to have all your life, right? So how do you find a way to experience your body in a way that can be, if not positive, at least neutral? So that part I think is we've expanded our idea of body image and how long it'll take to feel comfortable, what feeling comfortable feels like, how we know, and the normal, ebbs and flow of our body, particularly across the lifespan. Once you're wherever your eating sort of recovery happens, just wait a few years, your body's going to keep changing. And you're going to have to keep sort of
Mm.
discussing with yourself how to have peace in your body.
Yeah. I really love that. I love the body experience. I will be stealing that.
Absolutely.
Because saying body image just sounds so sophomoric a little bit, and we need to talk about the whole experience, and that explains everything that's going on in my body, even what my heart rate's doing, what my toe feels like. It's not just about adipose and the look of my body. Love that. So that's the new kind of the better way
I
what's
think so.
being framed.
Yeah.
I know I have a client right now, and she's doing a lovely body image group through Emily program that they're offering, and it's so hard to do the groups, and I'm so thankful that they're doing this tough thing. I don't have enough time in a therapy session to do everything and the body experience. So thank you for
Yeah.
having those too.
Absolutely. It's a separate piece or it's an additional piece that you're right. It takes time. And to have it be an area of focus, I think really helps people to say, okay, this is the time I'm going to dedicate to improving my experience with my body. And what a gift that is people to give to themselves.
All of us. I don't know many people that I meet here outside of eating disorders that don't have some narrative or some history about how they feel about their bodies.
Yep.
And not enough of the I love how my body functions and works and does its business. It's more I wish my body was A, B, or C.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Or
So that's good for all of us.
wish I had some skills to get dressed on those days when I can't get dressed. That's always my litmus test for people. Like, you ever had that day where you can't get dressed and you're pretty sure it's your body's fault, but it's really not. It's that you're anxious, you're tired, or you're whatever, right? How do we help people to develop the skills to know what it is that they actually are that we tend to like give to our body and blame on our body? It's not your body. Something's going on. Let's help you figure out what.
Yeah. Right. Which is why the healing is not about food. It's about the whole journey. And that's why it's so long and complicated,
Right.
as you know, as you well know. Really quick comment on RFID. What are you learning and seeing related to RFID? For those who don't know, I'll probably say it wrong, but avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. Did I say that right?
Yep. Yep.
Which is we see it so rampant in the past 5 years. I can't tell how much we've seen, and we also see it married with anorexia. What are you and or Emily program doing to treat RFID and its nutrition piece?
Yep, I think you're right. I think everyone is seeing that more, and I think that speaks to the degree to which the society has talked more about extreme picky eating, which is how most of the time RFID is written about, and so it's become more, I don't know, societally recognized certainly, but on some level, like societally okay, quote unquote, to have this issue and then go get help for it. I wish that all of the eating disorders had the lack of stigma that RFID sometimes seems like it has. Because
Agreed.
which is so
Yeah.
interesting because RFID is one of the eating disorders that really isn't about body image or body experience or body, right? It's about the experience of eating. And so and the fear that can come with that or the aversion to eating for certain reasons. So we're certainly seeing the same thing at the Emily program, lots more people coming in younger or older with then what turns out to be an RFID diagnosis. And I think nutritionally it's fun to work in those situations because it's really about helping the body to reduce its fear response and to be able to practice and see that the bad thing doesn't happen. Whether the bad thing is a fear of choking or the bad thing is the texture experience, which I think are probably the most common pieces. So I think really helping expose people to food in a really safe and trusting and again sort of experiential and practicing kind of way. I say to my clients all the time, like, let's just do an experiment. Experiments are just learning, and we don't doesn't mean you have to eat this thing your whole life. We might get through this experiment and you might never eat that food again, and that's fine. And what can we learn? So I think RFID gives us a great way to learn and to test and to practice in a way that doesn't have some of the same fears that we see with people with other eating disorders where they're worried that something will dramatically change with their weight or will change with how they're treated in society if they're able to eat that food or not. So RFID has a little bit less of that societal baggage attached to it in some ways, and then to see people be able to reclaim the things that they'd like to do, like being able to go to social events with people and not have to stay home because they won't have the right quote unquote foods that are okay to eat at that event. So it's fun to see people unlock their freedom.
I always love people who haven't tried foods and watching their experience the first time they eat celery or a cookie and the way they just there are super tasters. The way they describe things is mind-blowing to me.
It really
It's
is.
really fun to work with. It really is. And then to me it gets complicated though because occasionally someone will have RFID and then we'll see that an anorexic restricting brain is living in there too and wow, and then we're dealing with both. Do you see that sometimes come across your way too where both are happening at the same time.
Absolutely. Yep. I think
Yeah.
increasingly we're seeing we're seeing because we're looking and we're asking. Probably it's been there forever, right? But we're seeing it because we're looking and we're asking.
We're looking.
We're asking people like, what foods do you have an aversion to because it just doesn't feel good in your mouth, right? The person who told me 15 years ago that they really didn't want to eat tomatoes because they felt gross and squishy in their mouth, we often would say something like, well, there's tomatoes in what we're having today, try to work around that without really realizing that the fear of eating that tomato or the experience of eating the tomato was very, very loud to that person's experience. So I think we certainly are seeing more because we're looking, but I think it's that it's really that sensitivity, that stimuli sort of recognition piece that a lot of the brains of people we're working with just see everything. Like I was saying before, they just see it and they feel it. And so we see a lot of that co-occurrence with textural issues, particularly with foods and people with anorexia and even some of the other eating disorders. And we're also seeing, I imagine you all are as well, seeing people who maybe also have an autism diagnosis that have ARFID, maybe anorexia, that really
All the
that
time.
food piece is really, really
Yeah.
significant for them.
Yeah, we've been doing some trainings on that, and the percentage of correlation between ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and RFID is disturbingly high.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, which makes sense, of course, because they're sensory. To what you said earlier, things are so much brighter in their world and louder, and it
Yep.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are fun, but then when the anorexia is there too, you're like, okay, all this to do.
Right.
We're highlighting at very least how complicated it is, and what you're doing with the nutrition support, what Emily program's doing, is trying to at least provide less a pathway that's not so complicated, or at least has support. Where do people go? So people listening to this might be like, "Well, I like what you're saying, but I don't know where to get my nutrition support." What are resources that are out there for people to start to learn a food experience, a body language, or not a body language, but food language that is not distorted, I guess? Do we have any of those?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think
Sorry.
I think
What's out there, Jillian?
if somebody's already thinking like maybe there's something going on, should I, shouldn't I? Think eating disorders or even disorder eating have a way of diminishing the importance or the severity for people. So I would say if you even have an inkling that you or somebody you know might be struggling with something that vaguely resembles disordered eating, go look at an eating disorder website, like look at the Emily program website, look at a good informational website. The National Alliance for Eating Disorders has a great bunch of information on their website.
Good idea.
Really learn about eating disorders because as you read about eating disorders and disordered eating behaviors, likely you're going to recognize some things that sound familiar. And so that's a good place to just see, is this a thing? And I often will tell people, you know what, if you think maybe you might be struggling and you're like, no, maybe not, probably not, you know what, just call us. We love telling people at the Emily program that they don't have an eating disorder when they don't have an eating disorder.
Right,
Like,
right.
that's great.
Go on.
We'd love to tell you that you don't have one if you don't. And most of the time when people are concerned or concerned about a loved one, there's something going on. And so then I always say, just call. Just make the phone call, fill out the form online at the Emily program website. You can fill out a form and you don't even have to talk to us right away. You can fill it all out, but make the connection because the longer you wait, the longer you're going to struggle with this illness. The sooner you call, the less you have to struggle with this illness and the less you have to struggle alone. And so eating disorders love to tell people that they can take care of it themselves. I totally remember telling a bunch of people in my life when I was sick, like, no, I got this. I want to do this on my own. And I love it when people tell me that because I'm like, great, you are going to have to do so much hard work to get better. I am so glad that you are determined. We are going to use that persistence gene that you have. We are going to put that to work. And if you had a broken leg, you wouldn't be telling me, like, I want to do it on my own. It's okay to need help. And in fact, healing needs help. It's okay. That's what's to be expected. You don't have to fix this on your own. And I think that comes from that fear of like, what are we as treatment professionals going to take away? Like, what am I going to take away from you if I give you a meal plan? What does that look like? Or what am I going to take away from you if you're in a higher level of care? But really reach out for help because if you have any inkling there might be a problem, you're probably right. So get some help.
Yeah. And I'll put in the show notes some of the things you mentioned as well, so people can click on that. And you mentioned there the willingness to allow help, to tell someone, to connect. Those are the first steps in anything, in any kind of recovery journey.
Absolutely.
Is there anything out there that debunks some of this, the egg, the gluten, the dairy stories, all these stories that are building? Is there anything out there that goes to the true science? I mean, there's so many different sources. I guess where does one go to find anything veritable anymore? Or is
Yeah.
there?
I think if you're looking at nutrition, I would make sure that the source you're reading is from a dietitian. Like that's the first thing that I think it's important for people to know that there are nutritionists and there are dietitians. I have a dog that could call herself a nutritionist in Minnesota because there's not a definition. So if you're
Interesting.
reading something from a nutritionist, it's probably not a registered dietitian. If that's the first thing to do. Like, who's writing it? Is it a registered dietitian? Some dietitians use the full registered dietitian nutritionist, but really look for that RD
RD.
because those are
Okay.
people that have a degree in nutrition. They have the internship, which trains them on how to work with people with all kinds of different conditions and different illnesses. And they take a test and they have to get continuing education. So those are your nutrition professionals. They're the people who actually know what they're talking about. If you're reading something online and it's from somebody who's like a self-taught nutritionist, there's a lot of great information out there. But when it comes to nutrition science, you want a nutrition scientist to actually tell you about it and a reputable nutrition expert. A reputable registered dietitian is never going to put all of the benefits of nutrition in one food. They're never going to say like this is the food or this is the path or this is the way. They're going to have a balanced, scientifically based, wholesome, sort of fulsome description of what a healthy relationship with food is. And that's more complicated. It's easier. I get it. It's easier to believe that if I just eat this food, magic will happen. And that's probably not going to happen.
And the nutritionist angle and the social media angle is those on trends likely will not be useful for someone with an eating disorder anyways. Maybe someone, but if you have, like you mentioned, an inkling or an actual problem, those are not going to be good for you. We can just say that. Well, I don't mind making that blanket statement.
Yeah.
It
And I
won't
think,
work
yeah,
because they're rules.
there are rules. Food trends. I mean, food's not a trendy thing. I mean, it is. We have a lot of, social media information about food trends, but food's not meant to be trendy. Like clothes could be trendy, fashion is trendy, food not so trendy. So when it sounds like trendy information, I always think that's a big red flag. That it will change by nature. Trends change quickly, and so if that food was really that amazing for you, why would it change so quickly?
People aren't allowed to change these for us. Do you have one piece of advice or maybe a skill or practice that somebody could adopt to help them navigate the world of cookie guilt and disordered eating? What is one? I know that's a hard one little thing that you think is the most powerful.
I think really ask yourself what your body needs. So if you're in the kitchen, stop, stand there quietly, ask yourself, what do I need? And listen for the answer because that your body has so much wisdom and we just sort of ignore it all day long in many cases. So stop, ask, listen, and then decide what to do. There's a whole lot of information that your body can give you.
And if you don't know how to connect, we talked today about other ways people can learn, not only professionally, but on their own to learn to connect with their bodies if they're missing that. Is there a word to describe either your professional or personal journey? Because you have both that you shared with us today related to disordered eating and nutrition.
I think, I would say fulfilling. I think this career is so fulfilling personally and professionally, and I feel really grateful to be fulfilled by it.
We get to see recovery, right? I think we get to be in the tough stuff, but I'm speaking for you, but I think watching somebody find recovery is just priceless.
It's amazing. It really is.
Do you still do one-on-one client work as well on top of all the other larger roles that you carry?
I don't. I don't.
Bummer.
Yep. I decided at a certain point that I was so hard to schedule with that I was a disservice to people who wanted to see me because I was a lousy clinician in that way that I would cancel on people. I had to change things, that my administrative duties were always pulling on me as well. So
Yeah,
I decided, made a
understand.
really hard decision not to. But I am involved in training a lot of our new clinicians and oversee our internship. The person who oversees our internship program works with me. So I really take a lot of fulfillment from seeing more people know how to do this work.
Yeah, you're making the global impact, and sometimes we need people to make global so that this gets broader and louder, not just the one-on-one.
Yeah.
So important,
Mhm.
and I thank you for doing it. We from the very beginning.
Thank you.
from way back when you've been doing it.
I love the
I love
pioneer idea. I'm gonna take that to heart. Feel like a pioneer.
Yeah. Oh, I said it, so it's true. That's my rule. I say it. It's my podcast. My goal was to take away a couple of beautiful statements from you, and you've provided me several to use. And I think anyone listening who did or didn't understand about disordered eating has learned a lot. I appreciate your time and sitting in space with me today.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Mental Health Spotlight podcast, helping you hold hope on your recovery path.